If you ever mess up, if you ever don't like how it sounded, or if you mess up, you start over the sentence.
You curse really bad after
It's the
it
switch.
was hot.
Hot.
It's the glisten. We all glisten.
Always wanted to be hot.
Oh, am I gonna do?
Right. Whenever y'all ready.
Okay, so whenever you're ready.
Oh,
Well, all right. Hello, everyone. I am Yvette Landry. This right here is Mr. Bo Thomas, and this right here is the wonderful Mr. Richard Como.
How's it going?
And we're here to play a couple of tunes for you, and hopefully when you're watching and listening, you'll be dancing with us. So the first song I'm going to do is a song titled Where Memories Are Gold, and it's actually the first song that I ever wrote. It was a song about not understanding how anyone could write a song, talking to a songwriter, and he gave me a piece of advice, and he said, all you got to do is pay attention, and if you pay attention, you'll be able to write a song. So I paid attention, and here's a song that came out, Where Memories Are Gold. TV took the place of campfires, and walking underneath the bright white stars, and walking in the woods turned into smoke-filled bars. Nobody takes the time to write love letters anymore. Guess the way things used to be means more now than it did before. So close your eyes and take me to the place where the black water flows. Back to a place and time where my memories are gold. Well, nobody knows their neighbors, visits with the folks on Sunday night, and sitting at the table turned into drive-through signs, and sitting with the family telling tales just don't happen anymore. in town where my memories are gone. Back to a place in town where my memories are gone. All right, there you go. That was number one. The next song that we're going to do for you is a song called I'd Love to Lay You Down. And it's a song that I wrote after watching a documentary about Bela Fleck and the history of banjos, the origin of banjos, where Bela Fleck went to Africa to learn about where banjos came from. And talking to a chief of a tribe over there, the chief said, "Come walk with me over here. I'd like to show you where we lay down our elders. Once they've passed, we put them in a house with no windows." And from that came this song called I'd Love to Lay You Down.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Sounds good to me. How y'all doing out there?
Rather warm.
And the crowd goes wild.
Rather warm.
All right.
All right, we got a couple more songs for you here. I think, what's the heat index today? 109?
110?
I believe it's 109,
That's it?
110. In the shade.
That's all.
We good?
We good. I'm sweating a little bit.
Coming in hot.
All right, everybody. The next song that we're going to do for you tonight is one that I wrote after playing a gig at the Blue Moon Saloon in Lafayette. It's, I was one of the last people there tearing down my equipment and happened to look down at the bar area, and there was nobody else there except a couple, and they were sitting at the end of the bar, which got me to thinking, because I was paying attention.
Right.
It got me to thinking, what's their story, you know? Are they here on a date? Are they married? Are they just kind of hooking up? I don't know, you know? So on the way home, I gave it some thought, and I created a story for the couple at the end of the bar. And it's a little number called Friday Night Special. The day you packed up and gone. Sometimes a woman gets tired of living alone. Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, and Cuervo, but they're only your friends till the clock on the wall says last call. Friday night special is all that I am. A bottle, a bar stool, one willing man. Everything changed since we've been apart. Yeah, the deeper the pain, the harder the heart. Go Thomas. true. Friday night special is all that I am. A bottle of a bar stool, one willing man. Hell, everything changed since we've been apart. Yeah, the deeper the pain, the harder the heart. Yeah, the deeper the pain, the harder the heart.
Safe again.
All right, so as you know, as a songwriter, I was told to pay attention if I wanted to learn how to write a song. So you pay attention not only to what's going on around you, but you also pay attention to the different styles of music that you have going on around you. So the first few songs were influenced mostly by like old school country and maybe even some swing type of music. But this next one was influenced by some of the blues musicians that we have here around us. And this is a little number called Why Baby Why. Let's do it again. I was walking down the street just the other day when that two-timing woman took my man away. I said, why, baby, why? I said, why, baby, why? I said, why, baby, why? Why you treat me that way? Make 'em cry, baby. one time. She tried to take my man away. I said, why, baby, why? Why you treat me that we can't finish our set without doing something en français, because we are in Cajun country. So we are, and have been, and still are influenced by Cajun musicians and Cajun music. And this is a song I actually wrote in English and performed it a couple of times in English and realized that this song was meant to be in French. So we switched it from Mr. Bartender to Monsieur Bartender. And that's what we have right there. Monsieur Bartender. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Oui, ma bébé, quand même manger me sent pas rien. J'ai croyé, je l'aurais toujours rien. Mais personne m'a dit que toujours serait si lent. Hey, hey, Monsieur Bartender, oui, donnez-moi Donnez-moi un double bien et fort. Ah, mais oui, ma bébé quand même manger sans rien. Hey, hey, monsieur bartender, passez-moi une whisky et une verre. Hey, 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 monsieur bartender, j'ai essayé ici jusqu'à je sois fini. J'ai croyé, j'ai l'air toujours là. On m'a dit que toujours serait là. Hey, hey, monsieur bartender, oui, donnez-moi un double bien et fort. Oui, donnez-moi un double bien et fort. Non, passez la bouteille, je vais rester toute la nuit. Hey, hey, monsieur bartender. There you have it.
Yeah.
C'est-tu fini?
That's it.
We're here in Breaux Bridge, Louisiana, with the Yvette Landry Trio. And if we could begin by having to introduce yourselves.
My name is Bo Thomas.
I'm Yvette Landry.
Hello, I'm Richard Como from here in Breaux Bridge.
So you're from Breaux Bridge. Are you in Abbeville?
Yes, that's where I'm from.
Okay.
Born and raised.
All right. How does your sound? How is it? I mean, you play a variety. You know, you play the bluesy numbers. You play the country songs, which often tend to have a bluesy tinge to them. I think it's influenced by that instrument there. That pedal steel kind of gives it that slightly melancholy sound sometimes. But you also play the kind of the more mainstream Cajun sounds. How would you say that Southern Louisiana culture affects all of your music?
Well, I guess in terms of us, you know, Richard's dad grew up playing Cajun music, so he had that growing up. Bo started playing Cajun music at 17 years old, so you know he's had that. And then when I started playing music, I started playing Cajun music, and I dove full in. It was a little bit later than these guys, but I dove full in and immersed myself into it. So we all had that Cajun music background, and when these two guys knew each other for a while, and I didn't know Bo, and Richard and I knew each other because we went to school together, not as musicians, but as tennis players and classmates. We kind of knew each other. And when we came together, what we noticed, not only did we have that Cajun influence to us, but the three of us, I think, are also very soulful people. I mean, you can hear it in the way Bo plays his fiddle. You can hear it in the way Richard plays his steel guitar. And I think the three of us, when we get together, we say this all the time, you know, we play with phenomenal people all over in different bands, but there's nothing like when the three of us get together. I think everything, that Cajun music, that soulfulness, and like Richard says, we play for the song. You
listen to each other and we hear, I think, what the song needs, and that's what we play for.
And I might add, she is just so percussive with the acoustic guitar. It feels and sounds like she's hitting a snare drum the way she does it, and she's just born with that built-in metronome in her, and the timing is impeccable, and that feel that she possesses, you can't teach it.
Well, you know, my grandfather was a drummer.
My grandpa was a fabulous swing drummer, so you
And
can
I-
hear the swing influence in the music as well, and that's because of her, you know, is that groove that she possesses, you know.
So,
And the music, like, is really a world music, you know, where Cajun music comes from. It's such a worldly influence, Creole, African, Canadian, as well as the different types of music that we play: blues, western swing, country. It's all influenced in the music, and it's kind of a big
It's all
melting
just-
pot. Yeah.
It's like a gumbo, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
So when you write a song in French, how does that change it?
well, here's the thing. I don't write French. I sing French, but I couldn't sit down and write a French song. But as I said in the when I was introducing the song that I did write in French, there's a couple of tunes that I wrote, and I started singing them in English, but just my gut, like my heart, I just knew that needed to be a French song. It's okay as an English song, it's okay as a country song, it's okay as this, but I just hear it in my head as French. You know, it needed that. So I enlisted the help of some French speakers to help me translate everything. My son being one of them. We were driving to New Orleans one day, and I had the lyrics in English to Mr. Bartender, and I said, "You got to help me with this."
Right.
And so that kind of killed 2.5 hours trying to figure out how to do it. And then once he helped me with it, then I sent it to an expert to make sure that I was doing everything properly. But it works so much better. I can't even remember what it sounded like as an English song now. So I don't know where it comes from, but I just knew that that's how it was supposed to be.
So you guys are channeling heritage.
I
Yeah,
think so.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
I think
Yeah.
so.
I always say we're on the shoulders of those that went before us,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's like we're only able to go so far until someone else paves the way, and then we're able to take it, you know, and innovate and write and create, you know.
Well, there's always that dynamic. I mean, you know, tradition never stands still altogether. There's always that kind of evolution and tinkering. How do you see that in your own music?
Well, one thing that triggered when you were talking about that is when I first started playing Cajun music, I started later in life, and it was a new thing to me. And the thing that really just blew me away at the first jam that I went to was the age difference of the people who were playing music. You know, you had who was Lisa Trahan's dad, Mr. Harry Trahan, who's since passed, but he was probably in his late 70s, early 80s, you know, playing the accordion. And then they had some young kid who was maybe 6 or 5, you know, on the fiddle, who was playing, and then everybody in between. And I remember thinking that there was no age in that room. You know, maybe when you got out of that room, you didn't want to hang out with the grandpa or whatever, but in that room, there was no age. And so that's how I see the influence. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, we had some stuff over here. Bo, you came. We had I can't remember his name. The little accordion player.
Oh, yeah. Gula.
Jace
Oh,
Gula.
Jace Gula.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Jace
what a
Gula,
prodigy, you know.
You know,
But
he's leading the band of Bo and I. We're doing something over here on the back porch, and it's amazing.
he's
and
probably 6, 7 years old, and
Yeah.
he's 10 now, and he's just
Unbelievable.
fully accomplished.
so
We
I
need to have him for the festival.
yeah.
Oh, he's like the
Absolutely.
real
Yes.
deal.
But I think that's how it is. You know, he went at an early age. He was, whether or not it was just a gift from God or whoever, but
you
he
know,
started following, and then
We have a bunch of young people
Mhm.
keeping this culture alive. And a lot of that is due to Brassus Yuval, who's a
Agreed.
bass player with Steve Riley's band, and he's also the bass player with the high performance band that I'm a part of. But he has a school here in Brobridge and teaches these kids Cajun music to keep the culture. And look, it's exploded. These young kids coming up are far better than when I was at that age. I kid you not. It's amazing how good they are and how quick they learn.
and not just the instruments, but the songs
Yes.
vocally
Yes.
as well. the
Teenagers singing in
language
French and
yeah.
just, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we heard recently, we were just with Soul Creole, and I asked them, what would you say to the young musicians starting today. And actually, it was Ashley Misha who said, "Learn the language."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about that. I was, talking with one of these awesome unseen videographers. Coming down here. If you want to know how people think, learn the way they speak, learn their idioms,
Yeah.
learn the, just the small little things that they say to each other informally,
Right.
and that makes such the difference.
Yeah.
So
I grew up saying little idioms like that, little things, and I never realized that they were French. I just thought they were English words until later in life, and I went, oh, that was French.
Wow.
That's what, God
Yeah.
they don't.
Yeah.
That's not English, that's
Yeah.
French.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, there's no fear in the young ones, and there's no selfishness in the older ones that
No,
I
that's true.
find. Everybody is willing to just share
Share.
back and forth.
I have a son coming up. He's 31 now, and I had an extra steel guitar. I gave him. It's not 2 years. Got to hear.
Yeah,
He's just picking it up. He's born with that magic ear.
yeah.
Plus the beauty of YouTube now. He
Yes.
sees how it's done. Compared to the way I learned. I had learned on a record, spinning a record, going back and forth, trying to emulate these little
right.
nuances or whatever. But man, he learned guitar first, all on his own. And he said, "Dad, I think I'm ready to try this." Well, lo and behold, it's only a year and a half, maybe a year and 3/4, and he's got it, man. He's really picking it up quick. And something like this, it takes years to get this.
Yes.
The hands, but he's really getting it, man. So proud of him.
The
Stefan,
coordination's hard.
very.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yet I've heard Yvette say that so few people are now playing the instrument, especially in Cajun music.
Yeah.
Because it is difficult to master. The way you are playing it, it's not something that's ancillary. Like you hear in a lot of country songs. It's just kind of ancillary. It's kind of, here it is over here. Yours is foundational. It's all the way through the song.
Well, I
Well,
just.
that's what makes it good about us too, and that's why I love. One of the things that I thought when I first started playing with Richard was like you just said. Why isn't he up front? Why isn't he? Why is he just playing a few notes on this song? So when we got together, I'm just the chunker. I just kind of keep that beat and then let him
She just lets me play.
let him go.
And you spend the years just like Bo or anybody with an instrument. You spend years at your house in a corner, and you learn things. And sometimes you never get a chance to play these things because you, among other players or whatever, in a band. But in this case, she says, "Take it, T," and
Yeah.
so T takes it, and wherever it goes, I don't know where it's gone, but it's
Right.
going somewhere.
It's the same thing with
You know?
Bo too. These guys. It's when we first started talking about doing a duo together.
Yeah.
Rich was like, I don't know, a steel guitar and just a guitar. I don't know if that would work or not. And then
Well, she puts her camera filming one night, and after the gig, she forwards me what she taped, and I'm listening to this, and my eyes got big, and my mouth did. I'm like, oh my God, listen how big of a sound this is for just two people. But again, a lot of that is because of how well she
Yes, that's true.
holds that rhythm.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that.
We can't do anything without
That's the
that.
biggest
That's
inspiration for a musician is what she's doing.
but that allows them to do what they do
Yeah.
so well.
Yes.
So it's a
Yeah.
compliment on
So,
both ends.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the first time I met, very, very fleetingly, I met Bo. You were playing on the main stage in Prather at the NSU Folk Festival. And I said, where were you at at the Fiddle Championship? You could have taken it.
What year? I remember
That
that year
was-
because I won that and I did the.
You run in 2012.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
It was in 2010 or 2011. I
okay.
forget. And I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I didn't see all of the festival contest that
Right,
year,
right.
so I don't know if you really could have taken it. You probably could have. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, I don't know.
Right. But you certainly did when you came back a year or two later.
Right.
I mean, you were the man.
I had a really bad experience with fiddle contests, so I said never again.
Oh.
I got beat once. I mean, hey, no, I'm just. That's terrible.
Everyone has that off day, right?
I know, right?
No. They put them early in the morning before your fingers are woken
That's
up.
right. It's so bad. I'm just picking.
But you have. I'm gonna embarrass you now. You have one of the sweetest sounds that I've heard from the fiddle.
Wow, thank you.
That's
I mean,
amazing. He's the
You
bomb.
were. This is like a master class.
He's the bomb, dude.
I mean, the
He's
way you
incredible.
guys play together. You know, that whole online master class, you know, we got Martin Scorsese teaches film and all this. This could be, you know, the event landing
Yeah,
tour teaches
yeah,
honky
man.
tonk. How many hours a week do you practice?
You know, hardly any.
Is that right?
I never have, but I play a lot, and I really practice on stage. I honestly do. You know, I know maybe it's make more mistakes, but also it invokes to me more creativity. So
Uh-huh.
I kind of trade one for the other,
So play with that. You run without a net.
kinda.
Well, you know,
I mean-
when the gigs were there, and we were playing a lot, Bo might have been playing
Right.
6
You didn't have
to
time
8
to
to
practice.
10 times a week.
A week, that's
Right.
a lot.
So, you know, when you're playing that much, you don't really
That's
need
a
to
lot.
practice.
Right.
That
right.
is your
Now
practice.
I will tell you, during like this time where we had the quarantine and downtime, I did practice. I played for myself. I wasn't practicing so much other than just, you know, I mean, I enjoy playing, so I missed it, so I played. But
Now ask that question to this one, because you get a completely
That's
different
right.
answer.
Okay. Okay.
I play every day, you know, every day, and sometimes wake up at 2 in the morning and get up and go play. But again, like he just said, it's for me. It's a lot of things I can't express with other people, but I do gospel things. I do things totally out of the norm with this, and just for me. And if my mind, once and my ears are hearing something, I figure it out, and then I learn it from me. It's for me. It's my time. And after a gig, I can go play a gig, and you can ask my girlfriend. After the gig, she goes off to bed, and I go back and I play for another hour or so. You know.
We
after,
were at a
you know.
We were at a festival in New York. I'll never forget this. And we had a late night set, and we probably got back to the house that we were staying at around midnight, 1 o'clock or something like that. And we hung out and kind of just decompressed a little bit, and then everybody went their own way to their rooms. We got up the next morning to have coffee. This one was still at his steel guitar. It was like 5 in the morning.
It's a
He
drug
was-
for me, man.
He was
really.
still
I just
playing.
love to play.
And
man.
I'm thinking, I was wondering, did you get up early to play, or did you not go to bed? And then I realized he just hadn't gone to bed. He just kept on playing and playing and playing and playing.
Well, that's the one thing about here in Acadiana. You can go to a Zydeco or occasion breakfast at 8 a.m.
Oh,
and
yeah.
people will show up to dance
Oh, yeah.
to a live band.
I mean,
I,
dance too.
Yes,
They're
yes.
dancing.
I brought a great guitar player, Bill Kirchin. He's known as the Titan of the Telecaster, but he came over here one day, and I brought him to the Zydeco breakfast. And we walked in, and he's looking around like that, and there's a band going, people are drinking, people are dancing, sweating, the whole thing. And he looks around, he goes back outside, he looks up, he comes back, and he goes, "What time is it?" I said, "It's 8:30. He said, "In the morning?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Where am I?" I said, "You're in Burbridge. This is what we do around here."
That's right.
Yeah.
But people don't do that anywhere else.
Well, that ego goes out the door when you play. I don't need to ask you why you play. I know what it's like as a musician. You're not making trillions of dollars. You have your day jobs and all that. I'm assuming. I'll tell you why you play. I could see it.
It's the passion.
Yeah.
The burning passion.
You were just loving it up here.
Yeah.
There was the joy.
Yeah.
It infused even the songs that were, bluesy or sometimes downright melancholy with the lyrics. And yet, so many of the Cajun songs or the country songs that come out of Acadiana with that Cajun infusion, there's this almost reconciliation of emotion. The lyrics are kind of sad. She went away, drink was involved, etc. But I'm kind of singing it in a pretty happy way.
I remember
Yeah, right.
the first time I was playing at a gig with the Lafayette Rhythm Devils on
Yeah.
bass. That was my first band. And we were playing this song. I mean, it was just made you feel so good, and people were dancing. And I remember telling Randy Vadrine, I said, "Man, I love that song. It just makes me so happy." And he looked at me and said, "Really?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you know what it says?" I said, "No." He said, "Wow."
Just like it.
Sorry,
The
Randy.
daddy died. The milk cow is dead in the pasture. The children are starving to death. And he's giving, and I said, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "But it's exactly like you said. It
Yeah.
just makes you
Music,
feel
man.
so.
You want to
good.
go dance.
You want
Yeah.
to go dance.
Yeah. Things are horrible, but let's dance
Let's
anyway.
dance.
Right,
Yeah.
It's kind of an antidote.
Yeah.
You know?
That's it. That's it.
So you published some books.
I have
You have.
3.
I know. So the 2 children's books,
Yes.
and just give us a sense of those real quick.
So my first children's book is entitled The Ghost Tree. And it's a story that I told some little boys up in Maine about Asian land. They had never been to Louisiana before. They had never heard of a Cajun before. So when I went up to play a gig over there, I was staying at their house and they kept asking me about Asian land. And I thought that was hilarious. So I didn't know what kind of story to tell them, so I made up a story about this oak tree. We happen to have the second largest oak tree in the state of Louisiana at my grandparents' home. And I was trying to think, what kind of story could you tell 2 little boys that were 5 and 6, 7 years old? And I said, oh, how about a tree in the swamp that if you go in the swamp and you come in touch with it, it comes to life and it turns you into stone and it eats you. So that's what the first tree, the ghost tree, is about. And then the second book is titled Madame Grandois. And it was a story that my grandmother in this house, this was her house, used to tell me about this old lady called Madame Grandois who lived in the attics.
Tell them what a grandois is.
A grandois is a long finger.
Mm-hmm.
So Madame Longfinger. And if you were a child and you had not done your chores or you had misbehaved, when you went to bed at night, Madame Grandois would be in the attic
Is that it?
and her long fingers would come down and snatch you up and steal you. And I would always ask my grandmother, that's not true, what does she do with the kids when she steals them? And she would never tell me. So when I started thinking about it, I said, well, I know what I'll do. I'll just finish the story and say what happens to the kids once Madame Grandois gets you.
Gotcha.
So, and it's interesting because Madame Grandois in St. Martin Parish is different than Madame Grandois, say like in Ville Platte or in Eunice, in that area over there. Over there, the story is she leaves fruit on your door on New Year's Eve if you've been good. And so I said, well, not in St. Martin
Not in
Parish.
St.
Martin Parish.
She'll steal you.
It's
Yeah.
the more forbidding version.
That's right. That's right. I guess positive or negative reinforcement,
Oh, right,
however
right.
you want to look at it. And then my third book, which was recently published, and all of them are through UL Press, is a sort of conversation with the godfather of Swamp Pop, Warren Storm. And I met Warren a couple of years ago, and I had grown up listening and dancing to Warren Storm's music, and I had never met him. And Richard invited him one night to come listen to us play at Buck and Johnny's, and I met him, and I decided I wanted to take him to lunch and give him a CD because I had recorded one of his songs, one of his signature songs, I Need Somebody Bad. And in the process of doing that and meeting him, I came home and I was telling my husband about, oh my God, he's amazing and this, and he said, you know what, Yvette, I think I have your next project. Why don't you write a book about Warren? And I said, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. I can't do that. And he said, oh, you know what? He's an older guy. He lives by himself. Just go and talk to him and record the conversation and then put it in a book. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
And we ended up making an album as well. Richard and both played on it. We had...
How was that?
It's great.
Oh, man. Yeah,
Great.
we had...
Had some heavy hitters on there, man.
We did. We had Eric Adcock on piano, Roddy Romero on guitar, Sonny Landreth came.
Sonny.
We had Richard Bowe. We had Gary Uzey on drums. We had Chris French on bass. Mark Broussard sang. We also had John Fogerty
Yeah.
of Creedence Clearwater Revival sang a duet with Warren on that record as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So you remarked about how you pay attention. So as you look back at the kinds of things that you're telling your culture with your music, in the words and the music, what have you paid attention to over the years? What should people get from this?
I think it all goes back to the let's dance thing, no matter because I hear the stories that the old Cajuns used to say, it's true. The dad did go off and didn't come back, and the kids were starving, and the milk cow was dying in the field, and times were hard. There was a Great Depression. There was all this stuff, but the Cajun people are resilient, and they work hard, and they play hard. And in paying attention to everything that's around, no matter how bad things are, it's still going to be okay.
You make the best.
You make the best of the situation.
Any situation,
yeah.
You make the best of it.
And they may not have a roadmap of how to do it, and Cajuns will go this way and make their own path and make their own way
And you
and
make the
figure
best
it
of it.
out, and you make the best of it. And so I think, just from hearing stories and paying attention and writing stuff, I think that's what happens.
Absolutely.
You guys have played internationally.
Yeah.
How do people internationally respond to you?
Oh my God.
Fantastic.
They love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's surprising how well they know you.
They know us better than we know us.
I had no idea that they actually know you by your name, and they want to meet you, and they've seen you through the beauty of YouTube and all that. That's kind of that's amazing.
They're hungry for it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places that don't have culture, I guess,
Yeah.
is, for lack of a
Right.
better word. Not in the sense that we have it here.
It's not as salient. It's not
Yes.
as,
Right.
ours, you look around,
It's
you're
very
not going to
unique.
miss it.
Yeah,
Right.
no, it's
Yeah.
very unique.
But even before like YouTube and before the internet, like I remember traveling in different places of the world in the early 90s, and people knew who you were. There was a whole European market, a whole market for people that really sought out world music, cultural music,
Right.
and people would travel back and forth. Some of our ambassadors here would go and play music, and the people would just, they were so turned on by it. It was so electric to them that when you go back, they'd hear there were billboards of people like Zachary Richard in certain areas. It was really, it's really amazing. And that was before people could just get on YouTube and seek things out. They sought it out, like went out of their way to seek it out.
So before we traveled, like around here, I think a lot of people around here take for granted the wealth of talent that we have here, because it's everywhere. Somebody said you could swing a dead cat and you're going to hit 3 Grammy winners, just walking down the sidewalk. But when you go outside of our little bubble over here, people, they are floored, especially when they come in here. I remember we were playing one time in Sonny Landreth. We were at a little restaurant in Brobridge, and Sonny Landreth and it was me, you, and Sonny playing in the corner, and this couple walked in from New York or somewhere, and I read their lips, and the guy goes, "That's Sonny Landreth." And so, we're playing our song, and when the song finished, they walked up to us, and they had his wallet, and he said, "What's the cover? What do we pay?" And we said, "Nothing, Jim. Just, go sit down." And they couldn't grasp that you could walk into a restaurant and see world-class musicians like these guys,
Right.
and not have to pay at the door, And so they just, it blows them away. And when we go there, they just flock.
We have a different everything about everything here. What I mean by that is that back in the mid-90s, I was part of a country group from here in Acadiana, a really good country group, and we got lucky and got signed to Capitol Records and did the whole thing, the recording, the videos, and all that. Well, before we got signed, the president of the label and his entourage came down to scope this culture of what we had and listen to us play and all that, and they were amazed. And then they did a big interview. Entertainment Tonight came down and they interviewed the president of the label, and he says, "If you haven't been down to Louisiana, South Louisiana, you'll need to go." He said, "What I mean by that, it's a country within the country." He said they have their own everything. The music, the language, the food, it's a culture. And you don't see that
Yeah.
anywhere else in the
else.
country,
Yeah.
Because I've seen what goes on away from here. It's not even close. Got great players, but come to the soul where where it's really deep in the soul, they don't have that.
Yeah.
Good players, very mechanical, but when it comes to pouring that soul out and that true feeling, that really, really good, it's not. It's here.
Yeah.
It's here.
These guys
You
can
know?
they can attest to when you go play somewhere else. I remember the first time I went up to, I think, Wisconsin or I don't know, Chicago, something like that. We were playing in a theater setting, and we're used to playing dances, where nobody's really paying attention to you. They're dancing, they're talking, they're socializing, they're doing that stuff. And I remember getting on stage and we're playing, we're kicking butt, doing our stuff, and everybody's just sitting in their seats. And when we finished, doing like this, you know. And I remember at the end of the gig, I was telling Randy, I said, "Oh my God," I said, "that was horrible." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "That's just, it was, they hated us." And he said, "No, they didn't." I said, "Yes, they did." And they were walking us to sign some CDs. So we get to the table, and I mean, I'm all depressed and everything. I had never played in a situation like that before. And these people were walking up to the table. Everybody in the place was buying a CD, and they were, every single one of them said, "Oh my God, thank you so much. We haven't had that much fun in years."
Amazing.
And I remember
Oh,
thinking,
wow.
Yep.
"What?
Yep.
This is all you do. What
See?
kind of fun is that?" But yeah, that was, you know, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Last question. How long has it been since you played together?
Since we played together,
Yeah.
we did something.
You mean like last
like-
gig we had, or
Well,
how
as
long
a-
have
as
we
the
been
trio.
playing as a trio?
We did
Well,
something.
you and I have been playing together for how long?
Well, it's been
10 years?
10 years.
10 years.
10 years,
And
you
Bo,
know, but-
you came on.
But he's asking the
With
last
the
time we
quarantine.
played together.
Oh, the
you know,
quarantine.
Yeah, when's the
quarantine.
last time we played together?
Did we do something?
We did a little
among
short
ourselves
Zoom thing.
right here.
But
We,
besides that, it's
we
been a
zoomed
while.
about 3
Oh,
weeks ago
we zoomed 3 weeks ago for the Cannes Film
for
Festival.
the film fest
How
right
was
there
that?
inside the house.
It was
you know?
pretty
Yeah, I got you.
different.
Yeah.
It was different, yeah,
But,
different.
you know, it was
And,
different. And before that,
But this is our really first time we played this many songs since
Right.
March.
yeah.
Right.
You know,
How was it? How does it feel?
Oh, great.
it's always great. Just look around. Look
Yeah,
at the
I know,
faces.
right?
You know,
It's hard to stop smiling.
You know?
Yeah.
I understand.
you look at the faces.
Like
Yeah.
I said, I didn't need to ask why you played music. It's obvious. It's been an honor. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, gentlemen.
We're done.
He doesn't
This was
stop. He
painless.
just keeps filming.
It's my
He
job.
never stops.
We have enjoyed it.
I didn't mean